Hey, what's up, guys? Chris and Andrew Williams coming to you again to bring a little content from the standpoint of winning against resistance in life. And for this particular episode, it's going to be around parenting, some parenting tips. So kind of parenting, emotions, kind of all of that whole thing in a bunch. So the one thing that we realize is that we're raising children to be adults. World changers, absolutely. But if you treat a child like a child, you don't treat a child like who they're going to become, then you'll end up growing. You'll end up having a child that grows physically and matures physically through stages of development, but yet not maturing through emotional stages of development. So one thing Angela and I were intentional about is just helping our children understand how to identify their emotions, how to express their emotions. But what we want to talk about today is validating those emotions, because I think one thing that parents, they may fail to do, and for 2025, that's one of my growing points this year, is learning how to validate emotions when it comes down to my wife, when it comes down to my colleagues, when it comes down to my children, whoever, people in general. I want to be able to validate people's emotions so they can feel heard. And that itch of wanting to feel heard and feel that sense of importance and be affirmed, I can scratch that itch for them in a sense. And I think that it's so easy as parents to not do that with children, because there are many me's. We look at them as less mature. Sometimes we may look at their emotions as insignificant, not intentionally, but it's kind of this underlying bias we have, I guess. I don't know if it's a bias, but
And I do think it affects us culturally for sure, because we feel like with our children that we can give them, this is where we start naming children or giving them titles that usually stick with them for the rest of their lives because of the emotions that they express. And this is, I heard today on a video that this age, you have this 0 to 6 year gap to tell your child who they are.
Oh wow.
And those emotions are so important. So if you that works either way, a positive way or in the negative. You can tell them who they are positively, or you can build this person for them. Oh, you're a crybaby, you whining all the time, you this, you that, you're angry, all these things, you're mean, all these things that you can say to kids, and you're developing who they are at this fragile state. But it's never too late to start validating emotions.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that even older children need their emotions validated. I think we would have a safer environment if some people had their emotions validated, and we lived in a world where people felt heard and their emotions felt validated. So what does that look like to a small child, to a 3 and a 5-year-old for us that have big emotions every day?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what is that like? So let's say that one of our children gets upset and they start maybe getting angry, and the only way that for a while, sometimes screaming was like the only way that they knew how to express themselves. So what do we do in that standpoint? What did we do in that standpoint?
Well, what did we do?
And how we don't
really deal with it. You flow into that, because I got an example in my mind. I don't want to lose it.
So back then, we don't deal with a lot of yelling anymore. They still cry and get upset, but the screaming is, we bring them back to, oh, you're having some strong emotions. We identify what those emotions are. So one important thing for Chris and I, we had to identify our emotions. We had to learn how to identify our emotions before we can try to teach our children to identify their emotions.
Yeah.
So for us, we had emotional wheels around, on our cell phone, up on the refrigerator, so that most people think I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm fearful, but it's so many different emotions that fall into those categories. So we had to first learn how to identify our emotions. And then for our children, we would say, oh man, you're having some strong emotions. What are you feeling? And because we've now started to give them emotions and tell what they may be feeling, they're pretty good at telling us how they feel right now. A 3-year-old saying, I'm frustrated, is that's pretty good for a 3-year-old. So you have to identify what they're experiencing at that moment, and then acknowledge what they're feeling, and normalize what they're feeling. And then you can, after they feel heard, then you can move on from that emotion and help them work through to whatever the next step is.
And that's the key. That's the key we want to point on, acknowledging. Because when you acknowledge, you validate. You let them know that, hey, it is important. I understand that your emotion is real and it's important to you, and guess what's important to me as well. And I think that's the part we skip over a lot of times. Even if they don't have the vocabulary to communicate their emotion, you as an adult should be able to discern and have a level of social awareness to know, okay, my child is frustrated because he can't get his sock on properly, or my child is hurt because he just ran and fell and scraped his knee, and now he's looking to mommy and daddy for that validation. Now, if you just say, "Oh boy, get up," "Oh girl, get up," "You okay? You okay? Right. Stop that whining, get on up." Heard that one before, you know. You hear it all the time, but at the end of the day, that child will cry harder and harder and harder and harder until somebody say, "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Then they get up and move on because they just need to feel validated. This emotion swells up inside of them, and they just need someone to comfort it. They just need a dad or a mom to just show that they care. And it really just it satiates that desire that every human being has, that desire to feel important. That's a need that we all have. So that's the validation part that we want to talk about. Yeah, you got anything else?
You said you had an example.
That is the example.
Oh, okay.
The example is something that's very common that happens is, in fact, yesterday I was outside with my daughter trying to teach her how to skate. She falls. Now, I'll be honest, there's a challenge inside. It's challenging for me at times because I don't want to be the parent that's like, "Oh, baby, yeah, it's okay. I don't want to be that parent. I want to be like, "Hey, baby, it's okay. Let's get up. Okay, you fail. Let's get up. Let's move forward in life. Things are gonna be good." But I'm growing to habit at least saying, "Hey, you okay?" Now, here's a real challenge. They're doing something that you told them not to do. Oh, stop running in the house. Stop running in the house, and then boom, they hit a wall. Boom, they hit the floor.
I'm guilty of saying, and
they crying. And in my mind, yeah, that's why I told you this. Yeah, that's why I told you, but to stop running in the house. But even in those moments, hey, are you okay?
Oh no, you hit your head. Are you okay? Oh, well, what did mommy and daddy tell you about running?
Yeah. So guys, we wanted to drop this parenting tip here. I think it's so important as people, parents, whatever culture and ethnicity. I think it's important that we validate our children because emotions are so fragile, such a brittle thing. And if we don't care for it appropriately, then we can have a society of adults that don't feel important. And when people don't feel important, they do things to make themselves seen. And they do things to make themselves heard. And a lot of times those things are not always healthy. So, guys, we absolutely love you. Angela, you want to share anything else?
That's it. Go win.
Hey, go win.